Andrew leaned against the car and smoked. It was getting dark. A spark from the cigarette made half of his face glow slightly. After smoking a little less than half, he glanced at his watch, held the cigarette between his lips, turned around, and got into the car through the half-rolled-down window. He took out a nearly empty mineral water bottle, flicked most of the cigarette with the unbroken ash into it, then fished out a piece of chewing gum from his pocket, chewed it carelessly twice, and spat the residue into a tissue. He originally wanted to throw the trash into the trash can, but just as he turned around, the person he was waiting for showed up. The man walked out of the software company gate looking a bit tired. First, he noticed the brand new car parked by the road, and then he saw Andrew. His expression became a bit complicated. Oliver. Andrew was called Oliver in this world. At the sight of that face, Andrew was momentarily stunned and even forgot to step forward. The man stood still, used to waiting for Oliver to come to him. When he found that Oliver had no intention of moving, he frowned in confusion. A half-human, half-mechanical voice prompt rang in Andrew's mind in good time. The tone was matter of fact, thus sounding a bit cold. The system reminded, "Mr. Andrew, the target of the strategy is calling you." Ignoring the affection value dropping from 72 to 70, Andrew came to his senses and commented, "He looks good." Then he straightened up and sighed to himself, "I've been single for too long. Even a turtle would seem good looking to me." Then Andrew pretended that he couldn't see clearly in the night. He squinted his eyes before he could make out the person coming. His originally blank and unfocused eyes immediately lit up with joy. The dimples on his cheeks were so sweet that people just wanted to smile with him, old Yang. The system nodded, entering the role in 1 second, not bad. The person Andrew needed to pursue was called James. By the way, he was 4 years older than Oliver. He loved cleanliness, and his cuffs were always neatly arranged at the same height. He had a refreshing temperament, with his hair and nails neatly groomed without any mess. There was a faint woody fragrance on him, and he had a rare toughness and steadiness among young men. The outline of his chest under the white shirt was not overly prominent, but that contour could easily make one's heart race. As he was approaching the target step by step, Andrew simply reviewed the world-line information he had received in his mind. This world was the first mission Andrew carried out after entering the system world. According to the system, in order to help the task takers adapt more quickly, the world-line of the first mission after each task taker was bound to the system was highly similar to the world-line of their original life, and the difficulty was set to the easy mode. In short, it's a newbie tutorial. This newbie tutorial shows that his target of pursuit, James, is a golden phoenix flying out of a mountain village in the southwest. He is a college student supported by his whole family, majoring in software engineering. From not knowing how to turn on a computer to successfully being recommended for postgraduate study, nearly 7 years of studying away from home have worn off all of James' rustic air. At first glance, he is completely a young man who grew up in the city. As for Oliver, to put it simply, his family is rich. As for how rich, Oliver has never cared. That's his elder brother's concern. Oliver has loved music since childhood. And it's the kind of love that he would immerse himself in without a care. He is really talented. He can easily pick up musical instruments after just playing around with them. His good voice has the texture of a high-class musical instrument. He can sing, compose, and play, and he is very good at all of them. Oliver met James by chance on campus when he came to visit his former high school classmates after entering the Conservatory of Music. At that time, James was just a senior, at his best, full of high spirits. That fresh and tough charm of his made Oliver fall head over heels in love with him and blindly chase after him. James initially thought it was ridiculous, but gradually he was also attracted by this young master who was as delicate as a rabbit and could be easily controlled. It took a full 3 years from the time they got to know each other to the time they confirmed their relationship and fell deeply in love. One day, Oliver got drunk and on an impulse, went to come out to his family. Oliver's parents couldn't accept that their son, who used to chase after girls when he was a child, was infatuated with a man. Especially after investigating James' background, Mr. and Mrs. Chung strongly opposed their relationship. The two elders of the Chung family don't discriminate against James, who has worked hard all the way. They themselves came from the countryside and built their fortune from scratch. They know how hard it is to struggle. The two elders of the Chung family are convinced that this family will never accept a man who will cut off their family line, and his hopeless love is doomed to have no good result. However, love blinds people. After Oliver sobered up, he couldn't listen to his parents' well-meaning advice at all. He even tried his best to protect James, fearing that his parents would make things difficult for him. The parents of the Chung family are not so low class as to pick on a child who has worked hard on his own. But Oliver's nonsense really hurt his parents' hearts. For James, he fell out with his parents, moved out of home, and lived with James. To save money, James rented a place about 20 bus stops away from the city center. There are few takeaways there, but the advantage is that it's quiet and the vegetable prices are cheap. Oliver learned to cook for James and did quite well. After James praised him a few words, he made lunch for him every day and sent it to his company. A friend scolded Oliver and said, "Oliver, are you crazy? Why are you giving up a good life for a country bumpkin?" Oliver smiled and said, "He treats me very well. We've agreed to have hot pot tomorrow." Oliver is indeed a romantic idealist. Every tiny ideal of his is recorded hopefully on the sticky notes on the table, one by one, like writing a poem. Write songs tomorrow morning. Cook lunch. Come back to write songs in the afternoon. Go for a walk with James in the evening. Buy 2 cups of Sun's soy milk. Add sugar to James' cup. Turn on the air conditioner for half the night and sleep under the quilt. He never records bad things because he thinks he's really living a good life. He even refused his elder brother's secret financial assistance. The only time Oliver accepted his elder brother's kindness was when he took the means of transportation his elder brother bought, a new BYD. Because he gets motion sick on the bus. Every time he crosses half the city to deliver meals to James, he doesn't dare to have breakfast for fear of vomiting. But James didn't like this gift. He said that his elder brother was being condescending, trying to make Oliver recall the good old days and pull him back home. Oliver thought it made sense and obediently returned the car. Taking and then returning the car hurt elder brother Cheng's feelings. Later, his elder brother's greeting text messages changed from once a day to once a week, then once every half month. Besides feeling sad, Oliver thought that his parents and elder brother just wanted him to live a good life. If he followed James and his life got better and better, they might accept James. James passed the system analyst exam during his undergraduate years and joined a software company after graduation. According to him, he was highly regarded by the manager. As for Oliver, his career was also going smoothly. In the past, Oliver never had to worry about making a living and could focus on playing music. Some of the experimental music he wrote had no market at all. Oliver's parents tried to use their connections to package and sell this music, but it was just self-entertainment within a small circle. Now Oliver has to earn a living. The record market has shrunk severely over the years, leaving no room for Oliver to continue playing with his beloved experimental music. Oliver doesn't have a problem with lowering his standards in this regard. He likes to write all kinds of songs, whether it's classical, pop, punk, or rock. He's just a bit picky about quality, which is typical of an artist. He spent 3 months painstakingly recording 3 original pop-style demos and sent them to several record companies. For each music company, there are countless demos being submitted. Oliver was already prepared for his demos to disappear without a trace. Unexpectedly, he was lucky and soon received a reply. His submission was accepted by a small company with a payment of 5,000 yuan per song. The small company said they really appreciated Oliver's creative talent and proposed to sign an artist contract with him. In his excitement, Oliver signed it without even looking. Oliver was so happy that he jumped up and down. Before the money even arrived, he had already planned how to spend the 15,000 yuan clearly, and James was in every plan. If time could turn back, Oliver would scold the over-excited Oliver at that time a fool. The production efficiency of the small company was low and the final production results were not satisfactory. But when Oliver saw his 3 songs, Autumn Thoughts, Whispers in the Heart, and Love You, rising in the rankings on the music app, he felt sweet. Every time the ranking went up, he would take a screenshot and send it to James. Until he saw a comment in the song reviews, "Doesn't anyone think that Autumn Thoughts sounds like a revised version of Longing for the Mortal World by Hazel?" Soon, someone replied, "It's not just Autumn Thoughts. Words in the Heart also sounds very similar to Hazel's new song." Hazel? Oliver accidentally slipped his hand and exited the app. He held the black, screened phone and stared blankly for a long time. Hot sweat was oozing out of his body as if a nest of ants had exploded in his joints. He trembled as he reopened the app. The beautiful face of the famous rising star singer Hazel appeared on the app's splash screen ad, smiling at Oliver. That day, Oliver's Weibo, which only had a few thousand followers, was flooded by a combined force of Hazel's millions of fans and paid trolls. "You're so despicable. You just keep squeezing the same person." For the details of the plagiarism incident of the unknown Oliver, including the cause, process, and the analysis of the sheet music, please refer to the long Weibo. I casually analyzed Oliver's previous works. My curiosity made me click in, but my survival instinct made me back out. Amazing. You even copied the title from Hazel's new album cover. Are you plagiarizing the whole set? Oliver didn't care about those malicious comments. He wore headphones and frantically listened to Hazel's new song over and over again. His eyes were bloodshot and cold sweat was pouring down. They're really the same. Only minor adjustments were made in the details. You don't need to be a professional musician to tell that it's plagiarism. As long as you have ears and a basic sense of music, you can tell. But who exactly copied from whom? Oliver could guarantee his innocence. He hadn't even listened to many of Hazel's songs before today because he remembered that a caustic music critic had once commented on Hazel. Although it was harsh, it was quite apt. Hazel is good at singing bubblegum love songs. So-called bubblegum love songs are just as insipid as chewing gum, and when she sings, it's like she has saliva in her mouth. Hazel's smiling face kept spinning in front of Oliver, and on the digital cover of her new album, there was a line that read, "The Queen of Love Songs makes a gorgeous transformation, singing the words in your heart." Amazing. You even copied the title from Hazel's new album cover. Are you plagiarizing the whole set? Oliver clearly remembered that he himself had come up with the song title, Words from the Heart. It was what he wanted to say to James in his heart, that kind of forbidden love that was restrained yet bursting forth. However, Hazel sang it as a sweet little girl's secret feelings. Oliver only felt an unprecedented insult. The biggest blow he had ever suffered before was that others didn't accept his coming out. He never knew what it was like to be ruined and condemned by everyone. Amid the deafening tinnitus, all he could think about was James. He dialed James' phone number. As soon as he heard that person's voice, his tense emotions instantly broke through the dam. He could only cry out with a sobbing voice, Lao Yang, come back." He was like a child who had been greatly bullied. In terms of dealing with people, Oliver was indeed a child. He had been well protected by his family. So, when he grabbed James and cried that his song had been stolen and that he had been scolded behind his back, Oliver didn't notice the fleeting panic in James' eyes. But Oliver far from expected that this was just the beginning of his nightmare. And now Andrew, playing the role of Oliver, the steel-toothed white rabbit, stood in front of James. The former looked up at the latter with a smile and a sparkle in his eyes. James looked at the car and frowned, asking, "Did you buy this car?" Oliver turned his head to look at the car and boasted in a childish tone, "Isn't it beautiful?" James asked, "How much did it cost?" Oliver's eyes curved into a crescent. "Guess?" So far, these conversations had all happened in the original owner's memory without the slightest change. James frowned, and 2 more points were deducted from the favorability bar in Andrew's mind. James suppressed his anger and decided to reason with this young master who didn't know the hardships of life. "Oliver, we're going to be together for a long time. I'm very grateful for your sacrifice and sincerity in falling out with your family for me. But you've lived a privileged life since childhood. You don't understand that we need to live frugally. If you keep being so extravagant." These words were reasonable. According to the original script, the original owner should have hung his head in shame and admitted that he was just joking and that the car was given to him by his elder brother Daniel. Andrew timely showed a wronged expression. "This car was given to me by my elder brother. I easily get carsick on the bus." James gently stroked Andrew's hair and said, "Oliver, you're grown up. You can't rely on your brother for everything. Your brother has his own life, and so do you. If he deliberately interferes in your life and spoils you like this, it'll only make you more and more reluctant to leave your gilded cage. Am I right?" Andrew didn't say a word and just looked at him. James was very confident. Previously, Oliver had a friend who strongly opposed their relationship. After being lectured by James like this, Oliver drew a clear line from that friend. Oliver knows nothing. It's better to listen to himself, otherwise he'll easily be led by the nose. At this time, Andrew spoke up. His voice was extremely pleasant, soft and gentle, just like every time he whispered sweet nothings to James before. So much so that James didn't understand what he said at first. My brother treats me well. Does it cost you any money? In front of Andrew was a data panel visible only to himself. On the data panel were the host's real-time body temperature, heart rate, blood pressure, and the current external temperature, etc. Among them, the most prominent data bars were divided into two colors, blue and red. The blue one was the regret value bar, and the red one was the affection value bar. Both had a full value of 100. The blue value remained constant at 9, while the red value was continuously dropping because of Andrew's words. Does it cost you any money? Andrew sighed. Why don't people like to hear the truth? The system wanted to make a sarcastic comment but held back. James said disappointedly, Oliver, why are you talking like this? Andrew didn't get angry with him and said amiably, don't misunderstand, Lao Yang. What I mean is that Big Brother also has our best interests at heart. With a car, our lives will be much more convenient. I may not use it, but you can drive it to work. It'll make you look so good in front of your colleagues. His attitude was very good, as if the highly confrontational words he said just now were simply stating a fact. Seeing the affection value rise by 2 points, the system thought, one slap followed by a sweet date. The tactic isn't bad. James let out a sigh. This kid has been spoiled since childhood and doesn't know how to choose his words. He probably didn't even realize how hurtful his words were just now. Thinking of this, James showed the patience of a father towards a child and coaxed him, Oliver, a car is a consumable. Have you ever thought about how much you'll have to spend on gasoline every month and how much it'll cost to buy a parking space? Can we afford it now? Oliver put his hands behind his back and smiled sincerely and tenderly, melting people's hearts. I'll earn money to support you. I'm almost done with my demo. Then I'll have money. I've told you so many times, this isn't a proper job, James said helplessly. But I love music. You can't live on your love. Forget it, let's not talk about this, James said tolerantly. We don't want to argue. Okay, let's not talk about it. Oliver stepped forward, closing the distance between him and James, and said softly, Actually, I was also thinking that this car could be used to pick up your parents. Your parents and third sister are coming to the city next week, right? When they arrive, you can drive them to Amelia's school. Pick her up and take her out for a meal or something. Didn't Amelia ask you when you were going to buy a car the last time she came? These two things hit the right spots for James. He fell silent. As he said this, Oliver looked up at James. Meeting his intense gaze, James felt a sudden jolt in his heart. It was winter. As the lights were just coming on, Oliver exhaled. In the hazy white mist, his already glowing white cheeks were enveloped in a moving and delicate halo. The fur trim on his white down jacket fluttered in the night wind, brushing against his fair porcelain-like neck, making his heart tighten and burn. It made his heart ache with a strange kind of heat. And on the control panel in front of Andrew was showing a semi-transparent card. The data showed as follows. Name: Beauty Aura, Experience Version, Duration: 10 minutes, Quantity: 1, Quality: Excellent, Type: Single, Use Item, Required Exchange Points: 0, Free Distribution. Introduction: A fried rice with a golden exterior and a silver interior, a thick, simmered bone broth, a crab leg cracked open, a duck egg yolk oozing red oil can't compare to your gentle smile in the soft light. What a good analogy. Andrew asked curiously, Is the person in charge of writing the copy a cook by profession? The system was silent for a moment. 09 is one of the original AIs. It's innate data. It just likes to study recipes. Andrew thought this sounded a bit odd. Innate data? Can data be acquired later? Before he could ask further, the system preempted him and said, Mr. Andrew, the mission. Oh, I see, said Andrew. Seeing that Andrew had refocused his attention, the system felt somewhat relieved. When he first took over Andrew, he found that this new host was not an ordinary difficult one to handle. After receiving and reading the world line information, Andrew pondered for a long time. His first question was, When we meet later, can I directly hit James with my car? Andrew said, Don't be nervous. We're just having a discussion. After a short pause, he added, Oliver's family is so wealthy. If there were a traffic accident, their family would surely be able to handle it, right? The system said, "You really want to hit him, don't you?" Andrew said, "No, it's just a discussion." The system said, "Mr. Andrew, you're dealing with a real person." Andrew said seriously, "Oh, accidents happen. No one wants them." The system tried to reason with him. "Mr. Andrew, the laws in this world are not much different from those in the world you originally lived in. Intentional injury will land you in prison. Besides, if you run over the mission target, how do you plan to leave this world?" The main reference data for leaving the mission world is the regret value. Only when the regret value reaches 100 can the host leave the current world and be transported to the next mission world. The system mentioned the regret value to dispel Andrew's inhumane thoughts. Who would have thought that Andrew analyzed reasonably? It is said that a person's regretful emotion reaches its peak at the moment of death. Andrew also said, even if he doesn't die but is just disabled, he will still have a long life to regret. The system, just shut up. The system's silence made Andrew understand. He sighed and said, "All right, you, young comrade, really have no sense of humor." However, the system could clearly hear the obvious disappointment in Andrew's voice. For this reason, the system, which couldn't rest easy, specially rechecked Andrew's information. Andrew is indeed an actor, not a criminal with a previous record. Although there are a lot of negative news about him, such as being arrogant, smoking in public and setting a bad example for teenagers, being uneducated and not ashamed of it, having a poor relationship with his parents, and having sordid affairs with various older men. Most of these are just rumors, and it's hard to tell the truth from the falsehood. After simply filtering out this junk information, the system thought, fortunately, this host is probably just a bit of an eccentric character with some psychological problems. With proper guidance, there should be no problems. And Andrew has performed very well so far. He has also used the free cards just right. The system read that James's previously declining favorability value has shown signs of recovery. Each new host can get 12 free one-time cards. These props have different functions, but they can only be used once. If the host feels that the effect is good after using them, they can enter the system warehouse and use the favorability value of the task target to exchange for props and use them flexibly under various conditions. For example, right now, looking at Oliver, James gently rolled his Adam's apple. James knew that Oliver was good looking, but seeing even the most good-looking person too often would make it seem ordinary. But now he has regained the feeling he had when he first fell in love with Oliver, the feeling that just one look at him would make his heart flutter. The little white, furred rabbit, which had been well kept, turned its round black eyes and stared at him obsessively and intently. Such an excellent person only depends on himself wholeheartedly and thinks about him. This is the right way. James liked this feeling of getting back on track. He smiled and asked, "Do you still remember that my cousin's name is Amelia?" Oliver said proudly, "Of course I remember. I remember everything about you." For a moment, James had an urge to kiss him. But out of the corner of his eye, he happened to see Parker from the next door copy room getting off work. Parker was jingling his keys as he came out of the company's revolving door and was discussing with two other colleagues where to go for barbecue that night. James turned his body and subtly blocked Oliver. The hand that he had lifted halfway to touch Oliver's face was then put down and naturally slipped into his pocket. He said, "Next time if you want to add something to our home, don't forget to discuss it with me." "This is our home, right?" Andrew sneered in his heart. "Our home? Discuss? There are your whole family sleeping in this double bed. Have you ever discussed it with me?" However, Oliver couldn't think of these things. According to his personality, he only knew that James had given his tacit approval and the car could be kept. Oliver's eyes lit up and the affection in his eyes looking at James became even more intense. James smiled and said, "Shall I drive?" Oliver volunteered, "You've been tired all day." "I'll drive." He opened the rear seat door, made a playful curtsy, and said, "Boss, get in the car first. I'll go throw out the trash." James smiled and readily got in. He sized up the interior of the car, and his eyes showed undisguised envy. When would he be able to give away a car as casually as Daniel? And Oliver picked up a nearly empty mineral water bottle and strolled towards the roadside trash can. James stared at the computer all day long and his eyesight was not very good. He didn't see the cigarette butts floating in the water bottle. When Andrew threw the bottle into the recyclable trash can, the empty bottle hit the side of the can, making a soft sound of plastic shrinking and deforming. Andrew asked the system, "Do you see it?" The system replied, "Yes." Oliver majored in vocal music and always took good care of his throat, staying away from tobacco and alcohol. Andrew had smoked half a cigarette. Although he had casually covered it up with chewing gum, there was still an inerasable smell of smoke in his mouth and on his cuffs. However, his current lover didn't notice anything unusual and didn't even ask a single question. Of course, this was just a casual test by Andrew and couldn't prove anything. In his opinion, this was just one of the small signs before Oliver's tragic fate arrived. Back in the car, Oliver said while fastening his seat belt, "Let's go to the railway station to pick up my parents together when they come." James visibly froze for a second. Of course, Oliver didn't notice James' abnormality and continued, "I'm a very steady driver. Then we'll take my parents to pick up Amelia and then take them to visit Yunja Temple and go to the suburbs for a hot spring." James said uncomfortably, "Let's talk about it later." Oliver chattered away like a loudspeaker and said full of energy, "Then let me play the new demo I wrote for you. You'll be my first listener." "Okay." James was glad that he had changed the topic and readily agreed, "Play it." Oliver took out his phone and tapped a few times. A melodious piece of pure music drifted out from the speaker, extremely catchy. After a busy day, the music flowing into James' ears seemed to be massaging his tense nerves. He slumped against the comfortable leather seat and fell into a deep sleep. The system couldn't help but remind Mr. Andrew, "You don't have to use the cards so frequently." Andrew had just used another hypnosis card on James for as long as an hour and a half. Andrew himself didn't mind at all. Just doing a test. Besides, isn't the goodwill something that can be easily accumulated? This judgment was quite reasonable. A person's goodwill towards another naturally fluctuates. When a couple quarrels, their goodwill towards each other hits rock bottom and they might even wish to strangle each other. But when they are deeply in love, they are as sweet as honey and their goodwill towards each other soars. Just now, with a series of actions, Andrew had managed to bring James' goodwill back up to 72, exactly the same as the initial data. Andrew summarized, for a car that didn't cost him a cent, he lost a total of 14 points of goodwill. The system thought, "Didn't you cause the last 10 points to drop with just one sentence?" Andrew continued his analysis, a beauty-enhancing aura card with a 10-minute duration plus a few conciliatory words, and the goodwill is back. And to exchange for another beauty-enhancing aura card with the same effect, it only costs 5 points of goodwill. Calculated this way, it's quite easy to boost the goodwill. Did Andrew deliberately provoke James just now to test the fluctuation range of the goodwill? Moreover, that word boost gave the system a bad feeling. Andrew said, "Currently, it's enough for James to have a passing level of goodwill towards Oliver. Check the warehouse for me to see what I can exchange with the extra 12 points of goodwill." The system was shocked. Previously, in order to leave the world as soon as possible, his hosts would all try their best to court the mission target, desperately boosting the goodwill to 100 before considering anything else. After all, no one knew whether insufficient goodwill from the mission target would affect the progress of the mission. It was the first time for the system to see such a bold person who dared to operate right at the passing line from the very beginning. The system rummaged through its warehouse. Items worth 10 points of favorability include the Beauty Halo with a duration of 30 minutes, the Karate Black Belt buff with a duration of 5 minutes, the Painless buff with a duration of 1 hour, the Heartthrob Halo with a duration of 5 minutes. Andrew listened attentively and said, "The first one." After the successful transaction, he asked again, "Is there a Heartthrob Halo with a longer duration?" The system replied, "Yes. The longest one lasts for 1 hour and requires 40 points of favorability." Andrew pondered and said, "Then I'll save up some more." The system felt that Andrew was treating James like a pig in a meat factory. He would cut off the front leg today and the streaky pork tomorrow. The pig would grow back what was cut off, and this process would go on indefinitely. The somewhat creeped out system said, "With the remaining 2 points, you can only buy some small props and novelty items." Andrew, "Oh really?" The system, "Mr. Andrew, we are a proper system." Andrew didn't say a word but smiled knowingly. The system was so unnerved by his smile that its data showed slight fluctuations. "We don't provide the kind of service." Novelty items refer to some tangible small props that can enhance the relationship, such as flower bouquets, floating lanterns, and fireworks. Andrew said, "Get me some fireworks." 1 firework costs 3 points. Andrew simply said, "Get me 1." Andrew, what are you standing there for? Count it as my failure if it fails. The system thought helplessly, of course, it'll be counted on you. Who else do you think it'll be counted on? After the successful exchange, a clear ringing sound rang out indicating that the exchanged item had been stored in the inventory. Andrew waited for a long time and said, "Where are the fireworks?" The system replied, "The target of the strategy." "Isn't he still offline?" "Who said it's for him?" Andrew said, "Right now, set it off." The system was a bit confused, but still did as told. A firework with 8 cores bloomed in response. It fell like snow lines and meteors, dyeing the dark sky dome with a moving embroidery of light. The firework exploded in the distance. The light and shadow arrived before the sound. So, when the light beads and jade, like lines scattered, Andrew suddenly said to the system, "This is for you." Before the words faded away, with a pop, the explosion sound of the firework came late. The system stared blankly at the scattered flying stars. Andrew's face was reflected in the car's rear view mirror. He was smiling. Although Andrew had Oliver's face, when he really smiled, it was completely different from Oliver's innocent look. His peach blossom eyes were slightly curved. There was a hint of evil mixed with a lazy and nonchalant air, with an inherent charm that was captivating and hard to look away from. Andrew said to the system, "I'll trouble you from now on. Please give me your guidance." Although it was a bit touching, the system somehow felt that these words were off. Its nature was similar to a last meal before execution, giving someone a good meal before them. Soon, the system noticed something was wrong. "This isn't the way back to James' house." Andrew said matter-of-factly, "Of course we're not going home. Otherwise, why would I hypnotize him?" Andrew glanced at the car's navigation system. After confirming the destination, he said again, "I want to go somewhere." 40 minutes later, Andrew reached his destination. As soon as he got out of the car and saw the 4 characters Blmoments Cemetery, and considering the dark and windy environment around, the system felt dizzy. It said warily, "What are you going to do?" Andrew pulled on the handbrake and turned off the engine. Looking at the sleeping James in the rear view mirror, he gave a sinister smile. Andrew asked, "Excuse me, how much favorability points do I need to exchange for a razor blade?" The system said expressionlessly, "It's free to call the police." "Andrew, if there's no blade, wire will do." Andrew glanced at the cemetery gate. "Forget it. I don't need it anyway." Andrew didn't do anything to James. He got out of the car and stood facing the cemetery in the desolate cold wind for a while, as if lost in thought. Of course, this wasn't the famous burial feng shui treasure land known as Born in Suzhou and Hangzhou, buried in Beimang. It was just a case of false advertising. There was a huge rusty copper lock hanging on the iron gate, and weeds were overgrown. Half of the huge copper character, Mang, had fallen off, leaving only a lonely right-hand side. Andrew took off his down jacket and placed it on the front hood of the car. He stepped back a few steps facing the gate, leaving enough space for acceleration, and then rushed straight towards the iron gate. He seemed quite experienced in climbing over the gate. He jumped up when he was still 3 steps away from the iron gate. He accurately stepped on the rusty iron flower carved between the iron railings of the gate with 1 foot. His right hand naturally grabbed the copper character Bei as a buffer, and then the other foot quickly followed and stepped on the horizontal bar above the iron gate. With a light leap, he successfully landed on the other side of the iron gate. After landing, Andrew moved his ankle. The system asked, "Are you okay?" Andrew frowned and said, "It's a bit numb." Without saying a word, the system connected to his neurons and silently dredged the numb meridians. The numbness disappeared instantly. Andrew let out a soft exclamation and stomped his foot. He thought it recovered quite quickly. Without thinking much, he walked into the overgrown grass as tall as the tombstones after he recovered. The system asked, "What are you doing here?" It was quite afraid that Andrew would say, "I'm here to scout the place." Fortunately, Andrew's answer was quite normal, "I'm here to find someone." The system became curious, "Who are you looking for?" Instead of answering, Andrew trampled down a patch of wild grass growing out of the brick cracks. The winter grass lacked moisture, and it made a very loud crunching sound when stepped on. Using his phone as a flashlight, he ignored the tombstones arranged closely like a honeycomb and walked straight towards his target. Soon he stopped. The glow of the phone fell on a tombstone made of cheap stone. The name engraved on it was Axel. He was born in 1949 and died in 1989 at the age of 40. Andrew brushed away the weeds and dust clinging to the tombstone, stared at the tombstone for a moment, then turned around and left along the same path. The system tentatively asked, "Who is he to you?" Andrew replied, "I don't know him." Andrew added, "Fortunately, I don't know him." To make it easier to climb over the gate, Andrew took off his down jacket. A black waist, cinching sweater outlined his lean and handsome waist and abdomen. He put his hands in his pockets to keep warm. As he spoke, white breath slowly escaped from his mouth. You said that for the convenience of mission execution, the world line of the first world would be very similar to the world I originally lived in. The system seemed to understand something. It remembered that when scanning the new host's information, it saw that Andrew was from the same city as this one. Andrew added, both are called Baymang Cemetery and the layout is exactly the same. What a coincidence. But the person buried in the tomb was not the one he was looking for. Andrew took out a cigarette from his pocket, took out his lighter, and analyzed, in this world, line, Lucas might still be alive. The system didn't know who he was, but considerately didn't ask further. Do you want to look for him? The system was a bit worried that Andrew might delay the main mission because of his own private affairs. After all, only during the newbie tutorial will the main system provide the host with a world line similar to the original world for practice. After the newbie tutorial, there will be all kinds of strange world lines. If you want to find someone, you may not have another chance. No, I won't look for him. Andrew was still sober-minded and replied, he's living a good life and doesn't know me. What would I look for him for? At this point, Andrew stopped talking and the system didn't ask any more questions. Andrew raised his hand to block the wind and tried to light the cigarette. But when the flame was about to touch the tobacco, he put away the lighter. The system asked, not smoking anymore? Andrew said, Oliver has taken care of his voice for so long. I can't ruin it. The system said nothing and turned up the warming mode it had turned on earlier by 0.5 degree. When Andrew got back into the car with the unlit cigarette in his mouth, his body wasn't chilled by the cold wind and was still warm. He thought, this young master has a good constitution. He's really warm-blooded. Thinking about it, Andrew bit the filter and started the car. He left the cemetery and drove home slowly. When passing by a soy milk shop, Andrew stopped the car and hid the cigarette back in his pocket. Before driving to pick up James, Andrew had specifically checked Oliver's schedule for today, which mentioned going to Son's soy milk shop to buy soy milk for James. The handmade soy milk here is made with a stone mill. It has a delicate taste and James likes it very much. After Oliver got together with James, he accompanied him to try many breakfast shops and determined his favorite soy milk flavor, but gradually forgot that he didn't like soy milk originally. Andrew also doesn't like soy milk, so he naturally won't wrong himself. He bought himself a bowl of red bean porridge and 2 cups of soy milk for James. While waiting for the packaging, Andrew asked the system hopefully, how much will his favorability increase after drinking these 2 cups of soy milk? This tone was just like discussing how to raise pigs scientifically. However, Andrew had adjusted his mood quite well. It seemed that what happened at the cemetery didn't affect him much. When Andrew got back into the car, the effect of the hypnosis card had worn off. James woke up and was playing with his phone in the back seat. Oliver smiled with curved eyes and waved the 2 cups of soy milk in his hand. I was afraid you'd be hungry when you woke up. Both cups are for you. Later, we'll buy some small steamed buns up ahead and have a good meal. James lost 13 points of favorability out of the blue as soon as he opened his eyes. He had been indifferent to Oliver at first, but smelling the fragrance of the soy milk, his heart warmed. Then seeing Oliver's clean smile, his favorability increased by 3 points. Good boy. Andrew said to the system, look, 62 points. It's a passing grade. The system. One should have some pursuits in life. He felt like an old father earnestly advising his silly son who was complacent about just passing the exam. Andrew said, let's set off fireworks to celebrate. The system said, stop joking. Andrew said, all right. Add some sugar to my mung bean porridge. I forgot to do it just now. The system was a bit desperate. Mr. Andrew, what do you take the favorability of the mission target as? Andrew said righteously, as points. You said I could exchange them, so I did. He suddenly regretted letting Andrew know about the existence of the warehouse exchange system. The system exchanged half a small spoonful of sugar from the warehouse with 1 point of favorability, poured it into the hot porridge in the soft package, and stirred it evenly without complaint. James in the back seat observed Oliver in the rear view mirror, hesitating to speak, then hesitating again. Andrew let him struggle for a while before pretending to be concerned. Lao Yang, what's wrong? Are you carsick? James made up his mind. He leaned forward and asked, are you busy recently? Yes, I'm very busy. Although he said so, Oliver's voice was full of energy from the inside out with a strong sense of coquetry. James asked him, how's the songwriting going? Oliver originally wanted to talk at length, but he knew that James was a typical science and engineering guy who wasn't very interested in his major, so he swallowed all his words. I'm writing the lyrics. James said, Oliver, I want to discuss something with you. Go ahead. James said, my parents and third sister are coming next week. You're busy writing songs now, and my third sister may bring her child. It wouldn't be good if they disturb you. Andrew analyzed to the system excitedly. See, he's trying to get me to leave. The system didn't say a word. Andrew's words couldn't be considered a random assumption. At this time, James hadn't come out to his family about his preference for men. To be precise, until he married a beautiful mixed-race girl, no one except James' parents and his cousin Amelia knew that James had once been gay. In the original world line, even the original owner, who was broad-minded, knew that James' excuse was not a good one. They had already had an unpleasant quarrel because of the car that Oliver's eldest brother gave. Oliver complained, am I that unwelcome, and the two had a rather fierce argument. That night, James even slept on the sofa. Fortunately, Oliver was broad-minded and didn't hold grudges. Early the next morning, he wrapped himself in a quilt and rolled onto the sofa, actively asking for reconciliation with James. Holding his phone, he nestled in James' chest and said, look, I'll go to stay at my classmate's place next week for a week. Please don't be angry anymore. When Andrew received the world-line information and saw this part, he thought, hey, young man, you're probably a bit of a blockhead. If there are feelings of dissatisfaction, of course they can be expressed, but when expressing them, one should also pay attention to the way and method. Oliver paused and didn't respond immediately. James felt a bit uneasy and observed Oliver's expression in the rear view mirror. Soon, Oliver grinned, showing a row of small white teeth. Sure. His little finger gently rubbed on the steering. We'll cover. Mom and Dad definitely won't want to stay in a hotel. They think it's too expensive. The conditions of the guest house near our home are also poor. They've come such a long way. It's really not good to let them use the public toilet and not even have 24-hour hot water guaranteed. After saying all this in one breath, he looked up and gave James in the rear view mirror a gentle smile full of comfort. Then he drooped his long eyelashes and the warm yellow street lamplight outside the window just right slid across his cheek. But our home only has one bedroom and one living room. At that time, Mom and Dad will sleep in the master bedroom. You'll sleep on the sofa. Do we still need to prepare 2 mattresses for the third sister and her child? After muttering for a while, he looked up again to seek James' opinion in the rear view mirror. But in just the time it took to say a sentence, Oliver's eyes were faintly tinged with red and there was a misty look in his eyes. When hit by the light outside the window, they shone astonishingly. Realizing that he was a bit out of control, Oliver immediately shifted his gaze and coughed as if trying to cover something up. James felt a pang in his heart. Oliver. Realizing that he had been discovered, Oliver felt helpless. He raised his eyes again, fixed his gaze on James, squinted, and gave a gentle smile to signal that he was okay. Being looked at by such eyes, James felt his heart melt. He understood his difficulties and knew that he wasn't ready to come out to his parents. So even though he was sad, he was still trying to accommodate him. A sense of guilt slowly wrapped around James' heart. James said, Oliver, I'll find you a hotel to stay in. Oliver didn't refuse. With a slight nasal tone, he coquettishly said, okay. I want to stay in a good one, a 5-star hotel. James was amused and replied in agreement, yes, a 5-star hotel. The system was very surprised. This performance was truly a single take from start to finish. All of Andrew's micro-expressions were amazingly coordinated. He even made the most of the changing light and shadow outside the car window. If this were a film set, no matter which camera angle captured him, his expression would be perfect. The system had briefly glanced through Andrew's information and knew that before he was transmigrated, he was an actor who started as a model and had countless fans and haters. At 26 years old, starting as a model and caught in the mud of fans and haters, based on various data analyses. Andrew should be a star who attracted fans and made a living by his looks, rather than an actor. But the situation seemed to be different. The system decided to take some time to study Andrew's situation more thoroughly to end the running in period as soon as possible and improve the efficiency of task completion. Compared with other systems, number 061 always paid great attention to efficiency when doing tasks. And Andrew's performance this time reaped rich rewards. He said gratifyingly, System, the favorability has increased by 15 points, and the regret value has increased by 6 points. The system also received a series of prompts and replied, well, Come on. Andrew. As usual, exchange for a card. System. What kind of old rule is this? Andrew. What kind of card can I exchange with 15 points? Forget it. Send me the warehouse information tonight, and I'll look through it myself. System. Andrew asked again. Can the unused cards be taken to the next world? System. Yes. Andrew became even happier. Great. How many cards are there in total in the warehouse? If I collect a full set, is there any reward? The system had to remind him, Mr. Andrew, we are a proper system, not a card collecting game. Andrew said, I like card collecting games. There was a card collecting game on my original phone called Demon God Summoning. I was only 6 heroes short of collecting all 513 heroes. Speaking of this, Andrew said painfully, with this incident happening to me, I don't know how long it will be before I can complete the collection. This is really cruel for a collector. The system ignored him, and Andrew shrugged indifferently. They were approaching the destination. There were no free parking spaces in the community where the two rented, so Andrew parked the car on the side of the road outside the community. When pulling out the car key, Andrew turned his face and happened to see Oliver's reflection on the car window glass. In a natural state, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, just like a tender seedling nourished by love. No one could have imagined that such a happy and simple-minded young man would commit by cutting his wrists in a waterside town abroad 3 years later due to moderate depression. The plagiarism incident was just the clarion call for the start of Oliver's tragic fate. James returned home, listened to Oliver's desperate crying, and held his shoulders, saying, Oliver, calm down. Oliver's eyes were red. Lao Yang. Believe me, you have to believe me. James said, Of course I believe you. Oliver pulled James, and repeatedly confirmed with him and asked him for help. You watched me write the song, right? I even played it for you to listen to, and I also... James held Oliver's hand in his palm, and then placed it on his own chest. I know everything. Trembling, Oliver leaned against that solid and warm chest as if the floating duckweed on the wind had finally found a support. Listening to the heartbeat so close at hand, his ears went numb and hot. It seemed that only here in the whole world was the safest. With a reassuring support, flames burst out from Oliver's bloodshot eyes. He gritted his teeth weakly and said, I can't let it go like this. I'm going to sue Hazel. I'm going to. James paused. He stroked Oliver's back. Oliver, you're too impulsive now. Don't make a decision at this time. But Oliver couldn't care less. His migraine was acting up badly. He had taken 2 pills before James came back, but the medicine hadn't taken effect yet. The headache and anger tortured him so much that he trembled all over and broke out in a cold sweat. Why? This is my song. I can't let her steal it and frame me dash. Frowning, James pushed him away and raised his voice slightly. Oliver, calm down and listen to me. You can't sue her. Oliver opened his mouth silently, looked at him, and waited for an explanation. James sighed deeply. This matter was messed up by Amelia. Amelia, James's cousin, was admitted to a second-tier normal university in the same city as her cousin a year and a half ago and was entrusted to James by Uncle San of the Yang family to take care of. She often came to James's house for meals. She was the first one in the Yang family to know her cousin's sexual orientation. She also once asked James to treat her to several big meals on the pretext of keeping it a secret. The Yang family members all had good looks, and Amelia was not bad looking either. She had a fair and clean oval face. She liked music and loved to write some little tunes and publish them online. Because the lyrics she wrote could resonate with bright and sad girls, she had nearly 10,000 fans. This made her quite proud, and she considered herself a talented girl. But actually, Oliver didn't like her very much. Every time she came, she always pestered Oliver to ask how much he could sell a song for and if he had any channels to sell songs. Oliver didn't like to hear this and always fobbed her off casually. Amelia couldn't tell the situation and even coquettishly said to James' cousin, "Look, brother, Oliver has channels at home but doesn't help me." How boring. Amelia lived in a 4-person dormitory. The other 3 girls were all from the local city. She didn't want to be left behind and bought good cosmetics and brand name clothes. With her way of spending, of course, the money wasn't enough. She had to often ask James to borrow money, and James really lent it to her every time without a single refusal. For this reason, he didn't dare to order meat dishes in the company canteen for a whole month. Oliver felt extremely distressed when he saw this. It was also from that time that he started to learn how to cook. Oliver stared blankly at James and said in a daze, "What are you talking about?" James said with some chagrin, "Just now, right after I hung up your call, Amelia called. Do you remember? Last time when our parents and the third sister came to the city, you moved out. Her phone was out of power, so she used my phone to browse Taobao. While rummaging around, she accidentally opened the demo you wrote. She liked it very much. She asked me if it was written by you and kept praising you." Oliver slightly widened his eyes. James plucked up his courage and said, "I didn't think much about it at that time. I said yes, that you often write some songs." She just responded with a grunt and then continued playing with the phone. "I didn't expect her." Oliver finally understood and said in disbelief, "She stole my songs to sell? And you just let her steal? Don't put it so harshly." James said helplessly, "I didn't know about this. Amelia, she just likes your songs. She told me that she was short of money and wanted to earn money on her own. But the songs she wrote were not easy to submit to the company, so she wanted to try submitting your songs along with hers. Unexpectedly, all 6 songs were sold as soon as she submitted them. Whispers in the Heart and Autumn Thoughts were picked by Hazel. Just like?" Oliver bristled all over. "She asked me what names I planned to give to my songs. I told her that I had already thought of a name for one of them, which was Whispers in the Heart." He grabbed his phone, turned on the screen, and showed a line of words on Hazel's personal album to James. "I'm asking you, Lao Yang, what is this?" She even copied the name exactly. "Do you call this not intentional? You've written so many random songs and never sent them out. She didn't expect you to submit this one." James said in an unusually serious tone and reached out to hold Oliver's wrist. "She didn't want things to get this big either. She was very scared and even cried when she called me." Oliver thought blankly, "Why is she crying?" James pleaded earnestly. "She already knows she was wrong, but she's still young. You have to tolerate her making mistakes. If you sue her and the matter blows up, how can she face people at school? How can I explain it to my family?" As if a bucket of cold water had been poured on his back, Oliver grabbed James and groaned painfully. "Then what about me? What about me? How can I face people?" James gently held Oliver's face and said, "It's okay. I believe you. Those netizens don't know the situation and are just talking nonsense. As long as you unplug the internet, no one can hurt you." Oliver had always had a smooth life and had never experienced anything major. This was like an earth-shattering event. His mind was completely in a mess. James' confident tone wavered him. "Really?" "Yes." James coaxed patiently. "Think about it. My parents have always doted on Amelia, like their own daughter. If our relationship is exposed because of Amelia's matter, and Amelia is ruined and involved in a lawsuit, how can they accept you?" Oliver hugged his head and curled himself up. "Why?" Oliver murmured. "Why?" His ideal and his music dream were all ruined. Moreover, his lover resolutely sided with his family. If he didn't agree to take the blame for Amelia, there would be no future for him and James. Lover or ideal, which should he choose? Oliver had been well behaved since childhood and had no other hobbies except music. James was the first person Oliver loved wholeheartedly. Loving someone means carefully placing him in your heart, fearing that your heart isn't soft enough. James was very nice and gentle to him. He would coax Oliver when his artist temper flared up. He was down to earth and hard working, and they were also very compatible in bed. Oliver couldn't bear to tear open his chest bloodily and forcefully dig out the person he had loved for 3 years after experiencing a bone-breaking storm. He couldn't do it. Oliver grabbed the corner of James's clothes and asked softly, "How can I write songs with this bad reputation on my back? Will anyone still want me?" Hearing that Oliver had relented, James couldn't help but let out a big sigh of relief. He pulled Oliver into his arms and said, "I want you." This wasn't the answer Oliver wanted, but it was also the best answer he could get at this stage. Oliver's company quickly issued a statement severely reprimanding this abominable act of plagiarism and resolutely terminated the contract with Oliver, demanding that he pay the liquidated damages. At a critical moment, Oliver's eldest brother, Daniel, rushed over angrily, pointed at his younger brother's nose and scolded, "Oliver, you've got some nerve. You didn't contact the family when such a big thing happened." Oliver didn't say a word. His reputation was already ruined. Since he had decided to keep it a secret, he had to hide it from his family too. After scolding him, his eldest brother paid the money for him, spent money to delete the posts online. Still not venting his anger, he even personally got into arguments with others. Netizens rebounded more strongly when they found their comments deleted. The situation became more and more heated. Hazel's company also didn't miss the free coming popularity. They bought a large number of trolls and marketing accounts to fan the flames. Among them, a cyber singer-songwriter with over 500,000 followers was the most aggressive. He was a famous fan of Hazel. He posted 6 or 7 Weibo posts a day, chasing after Oliver to mock him. One of his Weibo posts said, "The plagiarist dog should be trembling in the quilt out of fear now, Doge, Doge, Doge." Below, there was a frenzy among Hazel's fans with filthy and disgusting language. Oliver was truly scared. He turned off his private messages, turned off his phone, and locked himself up. No matter how patient James was, after all, he had just started working and didn't have so much time to accompany him every day. Oliver thought that it would be okay after some time. If he could get through this period, he could start again. But later, Oliver found that he couldn't write songs anymore, and he couldn't even touch the piano. Even when he pressed a key, he would think of the carefully written piano prelude of Words in the Heart, and he would feel so nauseous and his hands would shake with palpitations that he simply couldn't play a complete song. After trying many times, he suddenly clenched his fists and pounded the piano. The piano let out 2 groans, one high and one low. In college, the genius Oliver, who could single-handedly support an orchestra, couldn't even play Ode to Joy. That day, he broke down and cried for a long time. After James came back, he hugged and comforted him, saying, "If you can't write, then don't. I'll support you." James was always so gentle, as if what Oliver had gone through wasn't a big deal at all, and he would accompany him through it. But Oliver was becoming more and more abnormal. He often sat by the bed all day long, not knowing what to do. Even a little bit of sunlight would scare him. He suffered from long-term anorexia and occasional overeating. He often forgot where he put his keys and wallet, and the sticky notes on the table hadn't been updated for a long time. He knew he was sick, but when he confided in James, James would only reply that he was in a bad mood and just needed to go out more. After more than 3 months, Daniel, who had a big fight with his younger brother, couldn't hold it in and secretly came to see his younger brother. Seeing his younger brother, who was so thin that he was almost unrecognizable, Daniel was shocked and forcibly dragged him to see a psychologist. Daniel showed the diagnosis result of moderate depression to Mr. and Mrs. Chung. Mrs. Chung burst into tears immediately. Seeing their well-behaved son like this, Mr. Chung immediately tried to contact James' parents to ask what they thought. It was not until they met James' parents, who looked shocked, that Mr. and Mrs. Chung realized that James had never mentioned to his family that he had been in a relationship with a man for more than 3 years. The attitude of Mr. and Mrs. Chung was very clear. The domestic environment was not good, and they planned to immigrate Oliver to a quiet small town abroad for recuperation. There was a professional hospital for treating depression there. Oliver was in this state because of James. James could go with him, and the work visa or immigration could be arranged by the Chung family. That small town is in Europe, and it passed the same-sex marriage law more than a decade ago. By doing so, the Chung family's parents can be said to have made a huge concession for their son. The Chung family's parents thought the Yang family's parents would object and had prepared a lot of persuasion, but after discussing it overnight, they agreed the next day. Oliver and James immigrated together. In the 2nd year after going abroad, Oliver's condition improved and he could play the piano again. When he sat on the piano bench again, he smiled like a child. "Lao Yang, what do you want to listen to? I'll play it for you." This year, they got their marriage certificates and held a simple wedding in the church. In the 3rd year, James made great progress in his career and proposed to immigrate his parents. Oliver agreed. In the 4th year, James became busier and busier. One day when he came home, Oliver found that the shirt he was wearing was not the one he wore out yesterday. Oliver started taking medicine again. He didn't know how to ask James and didn't want to know the answer. As for the Yang family's parents, they were always indifferent to him. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. Although they lived under the same roof, they hardly spoke 2 words a day. James was too busy. Oliver stayed at home with 2 silent old people and felt extremely lonely. But he didn't want his parents to worry about his well-being. Every time he called his parents, he forced out the brightest smile and said to them, "I'm fine. Don't worry." In fact, he was not fine at all. After the recurrence of his illness, he always wanted to die but didn't dare to, for fear of letting his parents down and hurting James. So he tried hard to live and tried to get out of the quagmire. He wasn't afraid of being covered in mud himself. He was only afraid of accidentally soiling the people he cared about. Until one day, James was on vacation. Oliver planned to drive to the supermarket 2 kilometers away to buy groceries. Because he forgot to bring his wallet, he went back home. By accident, he heard the conversation between the young mother and son at the kitchen door. Nora complained, "You don't know. Oliver is such a silent person. I'd be grateful if he could say 5 words in 2 days." After all these years, James still had the gentle tone. "Oliver doesn't like to talk. Mom, don't be angry with him." Oliver lowered his head embarrassedly. Actually, he used to be quite talkative. Thinking like this, he tiptoed to the table to get his wallet. As soon as he turned around, he heard Nora say behind him, "Our family has already got the immigration visa. When are you going to divorce him?" His neck was so stiff that he couldn't turn it. He hung his head and stared blankly at a piece of floor in front of his toes, waiting for James' answer. James was silent. Oliver felt as if he was being choked by the silence and couldn't breathe. Nora added, "Being with a man and not being able to have children is not a good thing. Your father and I lied to our relatives, saying that you went abroad for work. Everyone praised you for being promising. The other day, your uncle called and asked your father to bring some foreign cigarettes and alcohol back. He also asked about you and whether you had found a foreign wife and had a cute half-foreign baby. What do you think I should answer?" Oliver shivered all over from being stabbed by this string of cutting words, and his stomach ached painfully. He bent down slightly, hugged his waist and abdomen, which was as thin as a cardboard, and pressed hard. "Can you stand a foreign wife?" After a long while, James' warm voice rang out again. "Some time ago, a new girl joined our company. She's Chinese. I get along well with her." While being satisfied, Nora thought of another problem. "How do you plan to tell Oliver?" This time, James was silent for even longer. Oliver didn't wait for James' answer, nor did he make James embarrassed for long. That night, he used a utility knife to cut his wrist in the piano room. Therefore, at first, Andrew really wanted to run James over with his car. James liked Oliver, but it was just like. The favorability score was 72 points, 13 points short of failing, only worth a card and a firework. Andrew went home with James. There was a city news program playing in the living room, and occasionally the sound of James answering the phone could be heard. Andrew changed into his home clothes, went to the kitchen, rolled up his sleeves, and washed the dishes that had been in the sink for 2 days. In a relaxed state, Andrew always had a nonchalant look on his face. Standing in front of the sink clogged with vegetable scraps, he still had his eyelids drooped, letting the water slide off his long, white fingertips. His whole body exuded a lazy and quiet air with an inherent nobility which was quite in line with the identity of the young Master Ching. However, his dishwashing technique was surprisingly proficient, not at all like someone who never did household chores. The system asked him, "Can you wash dishes?" Andrew said seriously, "I can also cook." The system didn't believe it. After all, when Andrew got serious, he often wasn't really being serious. Because the next second, with a serious expression, he asked, "By the way, is there any rat poison in the warehouse?" The system flatly replied, "No." It now quite suspected that Andrew's enthusiasm for doing housework was to scout the crime scene. Andrew said, "I'm just asking." The system said expressionlessly, "Oh." Andrew proposed, "Can we stock up on some? It's a customer's demand." The system said no. Andrew said, "To poison rats." The system thought, "May I ask if that rat weighs 130 caddies and is named James?" The system couldn't help it and said, "Mr. Andrew, is there a less violent solution?" "Yes." Andrew slowly dried the washed dishes with a dry cloth and put them in the cabinet. Finally, he said something normal. "I'm going to meet Oliver's eldest brother tomorrow. After washing the dishes, Andrew didn't leave the kitchen and continued to call the system. The system said, "We don't sell rat poison." Andrew comforted it, "Don't be afraid. I just want to ask about the hypnosis cards." The system asked, "How long and what effect do you need?" Andrew asked, "What durations and effects are available?" The system said, "Like other cards, hypnosis cards are divided into 3 grades, low, medium, and high. The difference lies in the duration of use. The low grade 1 lasts for 60 minutes, the medium grade 1 for 90 minutes, and the high grade 1 allows for a customized duration, but the upper limit cannot exceed 6 hours. That's enough," Andrew said. 2 cards, 1 high grade and 1 low grade. 1,400 hours. Andrew didn't hesitate, exchange. However, the system didn't directly perform the exchange. "What do you need the hypnosis cards for?" Andrew was straightforward. "I'm worried about James' heat." The system showed understanding. Andrew was the 11th host it had accompanied. In the first world, almost everyone had raised similar concerns to the 061 system. After all, in each world line, the original host mostly had a relationship with the mission target, and they still had to fulfill their duty. The first 10 executors the system had accompanied all revolved around the mission target. They basically never deviated from the original plot of the script. They only appropriately avoided the bad parts of the original plot and were extremely nice to the mission target. When the mission target's favorability reached 100, they would fake their death and leave the world. Often at this time, the mission target's regret value would reach its peak. Among so many executors, Andrew was the only bold one who dared to deviate from the script and act independently in the first world. But when it came to the duty issue, his attitude was extremely firm and surprisingly stubborn. The system said, "We offer a free extraction service." That is, during sexual intercourse, it would extract the host's spiritual consciousness and perception from the body to minimize the executor's discomfort. Leaning against the fridge, Andrew gently pinched the bridge of his nose. "It's not this problem." The system thought of a possibility. "Do you have requirements for the position?" Andrew let out a snort. "I have requirements for the person." The system, "James." Andrew tilted his head. "Don't force me to insult him." The system understood and said, "Okay, then use the low-grade hypnosis card on James today." "Use them all," Andrew said instead. "First use the low-level one to put him to sleep. Anyway, it's night. Without any accidents, he'll sleep through the night." The system asked, "What about the other one?" Andrew replied, "I'll use it." The system paused. With his eyes closed, Andrew showed an Andrew-like smile on Oliver's face, frivolous, careless, and a bit self-mocking. "Or do you sell sleeping pills here?" The system redeemed 2 hypnosis cards as Andrew requested and successfully used them. After sending James to sleep, Andrew set a 6-hour time limit for himself and then fell into a deep sleep. After he fell asleep, the system sent an application signal to the main system. Number 61 to 101, applying for access to the main system. A few seconds later, a mechanical voice sounded. Number 61 to 101 has access permission. The application is approved. Immediately, the originally stable data flowed wildly and irregularly, like a waterfall like starlight. The waterfall, like starlight, gradually lost its luster and formed a solid entity. Under the swirling light screen, a man in white clothes and black trousers emerged. He stood barefoot in a hall with a high vaulted ceiling, and people dressed like him were shuttling back and forth all around. A few people recognized him and greeted him familiarly. 6-1, you're here, still guiding a new host. 061 replied, "Yes. Didn't you just finish guiding the last one? It's only been 2 cosmic days. Don't you take a 10 or 15-day vacation to reward yourself?" "No time," 061 replied. The one who asked the question, number 666, was a newbie. Hearing this, he was puzzled and said, "No time? What are you in a hurry for?" 061 didn't answer. He stared at the ground in confusion, as if trying hard to recall something. A young man with a delicate nose and deep-set eyes beside him seemed to understand something. He frowned slightly, gave number 666 a look, and then turned to ask 061, "What are you here for?" 061 said, "I'm here to find 023. He recently moved his office. Go southwest and look for room 1008. 061 smiled. In his physical form, 061 was an elegant and gentle young man, with a straight back and stars in his eyes. When he smiled, it was like the first sunlight shining on the snow, very amiable. He said, "Thank you." After he bid farewell to his acquaintance and walked a long way, he still heard 666 complaining, "Don't even mention my host. What's so good about that kind of man except having a big and being good in bed? He just won't let go. And there aren't enough condoms in the inventory for him to use." The man found room 1008 in the southwest, knocked on the door, and only heard a cold come in after a long time. He pushed the door open and entered. The moment he pushed the door open, the indoor data started to load. The surrounding light flowed and dispersed, then gathered again, forming a huge brain-shaped optical computer. On closer inspection, the flowing neurons and wriggling synapses inside were all huge data operation trajectories like the sea. This was the optical computer of the main God system connected to the databases of various world lines. A fair-skinned boy was sitting in front of the huge optical computer. There were two long and thin silver, white data cables on the table in front of him. He was playing Tetris on an old-fashioned card, inserted game console, and his pale nails were dancing on the red and green buttons. He suffered from albinism and his hair and skin were both pale. 061 said, 23, I'm here. 023 didn't even lift his head and just replied, it's you again. He successfully cleared a few lines and the beeping sound of elimination came from the game console. 061 stepped bare, foot on the matte porcelain floor tiles and quietly waited for him to finish this game. While playing, 023 asked him, what are you here for? 061 said, I want to download a few movies. He operated the game console with one hand and picked up the data cables on the table with the other. When the thin plug of the data cable approached his temple, it changed its shape. Fine silver threads like a spider's web extended from the top and entangled into his temple, directly connecting to his brain. Soon, dense digital light screens flashed across 023's eyes. 023 said briskly, serial number. He replied, movie starring Andrew. When the young man was concentrating on playing the game and heard these 8 words, he looked up as if he had seen a ghost. His finger slipped and he pressed the downward acceleration key. By the time he scrambled to try to save the situation, the words game over had already popped up on the screen. 023 cursed under his breath, turned the game console upside down on the table, folded his arms and looked at 061, asking, your new host? Why do you want to download his movies? 061 said, and all his information. What do you need these for? 061 said, to get a better understanding and facilitate the execution of the task. 023 frowned his snow-white eyebrows tightly, seemingly dissatisfied. 61, I'm warning you, don't get too close to the host. You've seen how dirty human hearts can be. If you don't want to be formatted again, just obey and don't violate the rules set by the main god. 061 knew that 023 meant well. When he was with his 8th host, 061 was once reported by his own host and was punished with formatting. After being forcibly formatted, 061 forgot a lot of things. He even completely forgot the reason for being reported, and the database only retained some basic data about the tasks he had carried out in the past. This didn't affect 061 much. He was still an outstanding employee of the year. His diligence and work efficiency were beyond the reach of other systems. He just didn't even remember why he was so diligent. He seemed to be in a hurry to go to an appointment to find someone, but the name of that person and where to find them had all become fragmented data garbage. 061 said, this is the 15th time you've reminded me. If you don't want to be destroyed, just do your job well, 023 said. 16 times to give you a lucky number. You're welcome. 061 good-naturedly touched his nose and asked, is the movie download finished? 23. It's done. Check your email. So fast. 023 tapped his forehead and was silent for a moment. I downloaded it before and there's still an archive in the database. 061 was curious, It's someone from the same world line as Andrew and a die-hard fan of his. There was a hint of disappointment in 023's voice. They downloaded all of Andrew's movies, whether he was the lead or a supporting actor. They're living their whole life for him. What a good for nothing. 061 didn't think much of it. He took out a cassette from his bosom and threw it to 023. 023 was overjoyed. He wiped the cassette with his cuff and tried hard to hold back the smile at the corner of his mouth to make himself look less happy. You're still quite considerate. 061 said, help me with one more thing. With the gift, 023 was finally in a better mood. What is it? After 061 stated his request, the veins on 023's forehead popped out. Do you know how troublesome this is? 061 bowed slightly as a sign of request. For the sake of the cassette, 023 waved his hand casually. Got it, got it. Receiving it isn't a problem, but it's too difficult to locate. I definitely can't give it to you today. It's okay if it's a couple of days later. 023 unplugged the data cable from his brain and picked up the game console again. All right, you can leave if there's nothing else. 061 smiled gently. Yes, sir. When he reached the door, 061 stopped, turned around and asked, by the way, 23, is there any rat poison in the main library? 023's eyebrows twitched. Huh? 061 coughed. I'm just asking casually. Andrew slept all night, while the system watched movies all night. After the effect of the hypnosis card wore off, Andrew woke up on time. The system checked the time. It's only 5 o'clock. It's not dawn yet. Go back to sleep. Andrew got up from the bed, leaving James alone in the bed, and walked to the piano bench in the living room and sat down. Once I'm awake, I can't fall back asleep. With this piano, the already small living room suddenly seemed cramped. Andrew was lost in thought, stroking the piano lid, and no one knew what he was thinking about. The system initiated a conversation with him, saying there's no rat poison in the general inventory. Andrew lifted the piano lid and said, you still remember? I was just joking. He silently stroked the black and white piano keys, feeling the creative impulse and continuous inspiration remaining in his body. That was the unique treasure belonging to Oliver, which had been completely taken away by James, who also casually complained that it was too cumbersome. A dose of rat poison would end it all. It would be too easy on him, Andrew said. It wouldn't be fair if James didn't experience what Oliver went through himself. When James woke up, he originally wanted to have some intimate moments with Oliver. But he woke up a bit late and didn't have time for that. He could only give Oliver a quick hug and then left the house with his laptop. Before leaving, he took the keys to the new car and said, I'm going to meet the client at noon. Don't come to bring me lunch. I'll bring some food back tonight and buy your favorite marinated chicken livers. Oh, don't forget to have breakfast. The good thing about James is that he is really gentle and never gets angry with Oliver. During the years when Oliver had depression, he still spoiled Oliver with a good-tempered patience as if nothing could really make him angry. To put it bluntly, as long as Oliver's interests don't conflict with those of his family, he can always be so gentle. As soon as James left the house, Andrew followed suit. He checked the route in advance and took the bus to Daniel's company. Oliver really gets motion sick on the bus. The bumpy ride made him feel extremely uncomfortable. He held onto the handrail and couldn't even speak. As soon as the bus arrived at the station, he rushed off and leaned on the nearest trash can, retching non-stop until his little face turned deathly pale. The system originally wanted to adjust his condition for him. Suddenly, it thought of something and only helped him lower his heart rate to relieve the internal discomfort. Andrew finally managed to straighten up. He wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, took out his phone, and facing the chin group that occupied an entire office building, he dialed a number. With red, rimmed eyes and a deathly pale face, he smiled and said, Brother, it's me. Can you come down for a moment?